Over 100 million smart contract transactions, a surge in TVL hitting all-time highs, a rapidly expanding stablecoin ecosystem, and new alliances with some of the biggest players in global finance. And the kicker? This isn't speculation. This is real adoption happening right now. The question isn't whether Stellar XLM is alive. It's whether you're paying attention before this ecosystem quietly cements itself as one of the foundational layers of the new financial system. Make sure you hit subscribe to Be Crypto Smart right now because I'm breaking down exactly what these updates mean for XLM, for stablecoins, for tokenization, and ultimately for your portfolio. Let's get into it. Meridian has always been more than just another blockchain conference. For Stellar, it's their flagship stage, the place where they pull back the curtain on what's next for the network. Roadmaps are revealed, partnerships are announced, and the ecosystem gets a glimpse of how Stellar plans to evolve in a world that's changing faster than ever. But Meridian 2025, set for September 17th and 18th, isn't just another annual check-in. This one feels different. This one feels pivotal. And the reason is simple. The entire context around Stellar and crypto in general has shifted in ways that no one can ignore anymore. Think back to 2020 and 2021. That was the era when Solana, Avalanche, and countless VC-backed projects were stealing the spotlight. Billions in venture capital flowed in, liquidity incentives were flying, and everyone was chasing the next shiny DeFi protocol promising triple-digit APYs. It was loud, it was hyped, and for a while it worked. Stellar, by comparison, was written off. Critics said it was boring. No NFTs dominating headlines, no flashy DeFi ecosystems, no cult-like community screaming about moonshots. It was just quietly doing what it had always done, building payment rails and talking about financial inclusion. And in an era dominated by speculation, that didn't get attention. But fast forward to 2025, the tables have flipped. The global narrative has shifted away from hype toward utility, compliance, and institutional adoption. The world isn't asking for the next meme coin anymore. It's asking, how do we tokenize trillions of dollars in real assets? How do we create stable, compliant settlement rails that banks, corporations, and even governments can use? How do we build institutional DeFi systems that don't collapse every time liquidity dries up? That's not Solana's wheelhouse. That's not Dogecoin's purpose. That's Stellar's entire DNA. And that's why Meridian 2025 is shaping up as a turning point. Because for the first time in years, the world's biggest financial questions are aligned with what Stellar has been quietly preparing for all along. And that means this year's conference won't just be about feel-good speeches or developer showcases. It's going to be about signaling to the world that Stellar is stepping fully into the institutional spotlight. Here's what you can expect at Meridian. 1. Major partnership announcements. Stellar has a track record of using Meridian to announce who's building on the network, and this year, all signs point to a heavyweight reveal. With tokenization now dominating headlines and regulators openly acknowledging stablecoins as part of the financial future, don't be surprised if a major TradFi player, a global bank, a payments giant, or even an asset manager steps onto that stage. The timing couldn't be better. 2. Ecosystem growth on Soroban. Soroban's smart contracts have already powered over 100 million transactions. That's not a proof of concept anymore, that's real usage. At Meridian, expect showcases of new DeFi primitives. Borrowing, lending, tokenized debt instruments, bridges, and staking tools. But more importantly, expect projects that connect those primitives to real-world use cases, payroll systems, remittance networks, even NGO disbursements. Stellar's ecosystem isn't trying to recreate Ethereum DeFi. It's carving its own lane, institutional-grade, compliance-ready financial applications. 3. Institutional conversations that matter. This is where the real focus will be. Stablecoins, tokenization, real-world assets, RWAs. These are no longer side topics. They are the core drivers of the next $1 trillion in crypto adoption. Meridian is where regulators, builders, and institutions will be on the same stage talking about how to actually implement this at scale. And that's the real difference between this Meridian and everyone that came before it. The stakes are higher now. The global financial system is actively moving toward tokenized rails. Central banks, Regulators and global corporations are openly exploring or piloting blockchain integrations. And Stellar isn't trying to play catch-up anymore. It's standing in the perfect position to be one of the core layers those systems run on. So don't look at Meridian 2025 as just another conference. Look at it as a signal event. A declaration that Stellar is ready to move from being the boring payments chain to becoming a backbone of institutional finance. This is the moment where years of quiet building meet the spotlight. 100 million transactions and explosive DeFi growth. Here's where the numbers start cutting through the noise, because narratives can be spun, but hard data doesn't lie. Stellar has officially crossed 100 million smart contract transactions on Soroban. That isn't a projection. That isn't marketing spin. That's real adoption happening in real time right now. And if you understand how networks scale, you know how significant that milestone is. It means Soroban has moved past the experimental phase and is firmly in the production phase, handling tens of millions of live interactions that prove its reliability. Now, let's talk about what's actually happening inside this growth. DeFi on Stellar, a new phase. We're no longer talking about Stellar as just a payments chain. Soroban has unlocked a brand new growth engine. DeFi built for institutions and global markets. Borrowing and lending. No longer just crypto-native lending circles, but tools that can directly plug into real-world financial flows. Staking and liquidity provision. Incentivized structures that reward long-term participants while supporting real liquidity depth. Tokenization. Real-world assets moving on-chain, from treasuries to currencies, tied directly to Soroban contracts. Cross-chain bridges and wallets. Expanding Stellar's reach, ensuring that liquidity and assets can move seamlessly across ecosystems. This is the foundation of an institutional-grade DeFi ecosystem, not casino-style speculation, but rails that can be trusted by banks, NGOs, fintechs, and enterprises. The TVL explosion. Look at the total value locked, TVL. Just a quarter ago, Stellar DeFi was sitting at $69 million. Fast forward, and TVL has blasted through to an all-time high of $150 million. That's more than double in a single quarter, one of the fastest growth rates in the entire Layer 1 space right now. And while $150 million might sound small compared to Ethereum's billions, here's the key. This isn't retail chasing yield. This is sticky, institutional-grade capital flowing into Stellar DeFi, testing the rails for scalability and compliance. That's the capital you can build on. The capital that doesn't disappear in a market downturn. Efficiency that scales. But raw growth is only half the story. The real edge is in efficiency metrics. Transaction costs, fractions of a penny. Compare that to Ethereum, where simple actions can still cost dollars in gas fees. Institutions can't build payroll systems, remittance networks, or tokenized treasuries on rails that are prohibitively expensive. Stellar's cost profile isn't just competitive, it's transformative. Speed. An average ledger close time of 5.67 seconds. That's near-instant settlement at global scale. For context, Visa clears thousands of transactions per second, but in terms of finality and global accessibility, Stellar is right there in the conversation. Scalability. 100M smart contract transactions prove the system isn't just efficient, it's resilient under load. That's the test most chains fail when the hype hits. These aren't just bragging rights. They're the exact metrics that institutional players are evaluating when they decide which networks they can actually trust to carry billions in daily financial flows. The bigger picture. Here's the part the critics don't get. This isn't DeFi for yield farmers chasing the next pump. This isn't about copying Ethereum and hoping retail users bridge over. The DeFi that matters is the kind that moves real value across borders. Cross-border payroll, NGO disbursements, tokenized treasuries for corporates, stablecoin rails for emerging markets. That's the DeFi Stellar is building. That's why the growth here is so much more important than another meme coin DX seeing a spike in TVL. Why this matters for XLM holders. When you step back, the milestone of 100 million transactions isn't just about adoption, it's about validation. It proves that Stellar isn't just surviving in 2025, it's scaling in exactly the areas that institutions are watching most closely. So when people still dismiss Stellar as outdated or boring, They're not seeing the shift. They're stuck in 2021 when DeFi was about hype. In 2025, DeFi is about infrastructure. And that's where Stellar is already delivering. If there's one theme dominating 2025, it isn't meme coins, it isn't NFTs, and it isn't hype-driven DeFi farms. It's tokenization. And Stellar has quietly placed itself at the epicenter of this trillion-dollar movement. For years, institutions talked about tokenization as if it was a far-off idea. But here we are in 2025, and the conversation has completely flipped. Regulators, asset managers, and banks are no longer debating if tokenization happens. They're debating how fast and on which rails. And guess what? Stellar is no longer on the sidelines. It's right in the middle of the alliances that matter. The Tokenized Assets Coalition, a $1 trillion on-ramp. Stellar has officially joined the Tokenized Assets, TA Coalition, a group with one mission: onboarding the next $1 trillion of assets on-chain. This isn't just a loose group of crypto startups. This is a consortium bringing together global financial heavyweights. Names like Fidelity, one of the largest asset managers in the world. If they're here, tokenization is no longer experimental. It's institutional. Polymesh, a compliance-focused blockchain built for regulated securities. ZK Sync, bringing zero-knowledge scaling tech into tokenized assets. Wormhole, enabling cross-chain liquidity and interoperability at scale. This is a serious roster. It shows that tokenization is no longer fragmented. The biggest players in both TradFi and blockchain are sitting at the same table, building out standards and shared infrastructure. And Stellar is right there, part of the conversation. ERC 3643, compliance comes first. But the coalition is just one piece. Stellar also joined ERC 3643, which might sound like just another Ethereum standard, but it's far bigger than that. ERC 3643 is a compliance framework for tokenized real-world assets, RWAs, and it's not theoretical, it's already managing over $32 billion worth of assets tokenized under its standard. Why does this matter? Because institutions can't just tokenize assets on any chain with no rules. They need permissioned access controls, ensuring only KYC'd and approved entities interact. Regulatory alignment, meeting legal requirements across multiple jurisdictions. Auditability, assets that can be transparently tracked but still comply with privacy laws. ERC 3643 provides exactly that. It bridges the gap between public blockchain infrastructure and regulated financial markets. And now Stellar is inside that ecosystem alongside names like Hedera, which also joined earlier this year. This is a massive move because it signals that Stellar isn't trying to reinvent compliance. It's aligning with the frameworks institutions are already adopting. That's how you scale beyond crypto-native money and into multi-trillion-dollar markets. Why compliance plus interoperability equals adoption. Here's the truth. Institutions won't touch fragmented, unregulated DeFi. They've seen what happens when hype-driven ecosystems blow up. Billions lost, liquidity vanishing overnight, regulators stepping in after the collapse. If you're BlackRock, Fidelity, or Citi, you're not looking for the next casino chain. You're looking for rails that guarantee liquidity that can move across borders, compliance that regulators can sign off on, standards that ensure interoperability with global markets. That's why Stellar joining ERC 3643 and the TA Coalition is so critical. It signals that Stellar isn't just another blockchain chasing transactions. It's positioning itself as a core settlement layer for institutional tokenization. Tokenization is not a buzzword anymore. For years, people dismissed tokenization as marketing fluff. We'll tokenize stocks, bonds, real estate someday. That someday has arrived. The SEC itself has acknowledged tokenization as a future bigger than ETFs. The IMF and BIS are openly writing about tokenized payment systems and unified ledgers. Asset managers are rolling out tokenized treasuries, with adoption ramping across the US, Europe, and Asia. The tide is moving fast. And while some chains are scrambling to prove they can handle compliance, Stellar is already sitting in the alliances that matter most. The takeaway for XLM holders. This is the part most retail investors aren't grasping. Tokenization isn't some side project. It's the backbone of the next decade of finance. And Stellar has strategically placed itself where compliance, interoperability, and TradFi adoption intersect. That means as trillions in assets move on-chain, Stellar isn't just another option. It's a core layer in the settlement stack. And when that happens, every stablecoin issued, every tokenized treasury moved, every RWA bridged, all of it runs on Stellar's rails. That's not just growth for the ecosystem. That's direct utility for XLM. This is why tokenization isn't just another buzzword. It's the wealth transfer event of the decade. And Stellar is making sure it's inside the room where it happens. The stablecoin boom on Stellar. This is the part retail investors are sleeping on, and it could end up being the most important development in Stellar's entire ecosystem. Because while everyone's distracted by ETFs, meme tokens, and hype cycles, the real adoption story is happening in stablecoins. And Stellar is emerging as one of the fastest-growing stablecoin networks in the world. The expanding stablecoin roster. Right now, 7 different stablecoins already live on Stellar, and that list keeps growing. USDC, Circle, one of the most trusted global stablecoins, fully integrated into Stellar's rails. Z.com USD and Japanese yen, GMO Trust bringing both dollar and yen-pegged assets onto Stellar's compliant framework. Euro stablecoin, expanding usage for businesses and institutions operating across the EU. Australian and Canadian digital dollars, proof that Stellar's reach extends beyond just US markets into multiple continents. Netherlands MAR stablecoin, serving Europe with localized stable assets. And now the newest launch, ZAR Coin, pegged 1:1 to the South African rand. This isn't theory. These are live stablecoins on-chain and already being used. And each one expands Stellar's footprint in a different region of the global economy. Why stablecoins are the killer app? Let's step back for a second. Forget speculation. Forget chasing the next Solana. The real killer app of blockchain isn't NFTs or meme coins. It's stablecoins. Here's why. They're already being used daily. Millions of people worldwide rely on stablecoins for remittances, payroll, merchant payments, and global transfers. They provide dollar access in emerging markets. For people without stable local banking systems, stablecoins are literally financial lifelines. They solve cross-border inefficiencies. Traditional banking rails take days, cost 5 to 10%, and exclude millions. Stablecoins move instantly, at fractions of a penny. Stablecoins are the bridge between crypto and the real economy. And Stellar is positioning itself as the network where that bridge is actually being built. The ZAR Coin example, a game changer for emerging markets. Take ZAR Coin, the South African Rand stablecoin, launched through TD Markets in partnership with Shift Markets. This isn't just another token. It's an economic tool designed for real usage in a massive, underserved market. Here's what it offers. 7.5% APY returns for holders. That's not speculation, that's income, baked into the system. 170+ countries supported through Stellar's Global on/off-ramps. ZAR Coin isn't isolated. It's globally liquid. 24/7 liquidity. No closing hours, no settlement delays, no waiting for banks to open. Tailored compliance and merchant tools. Payroll support, merchant invoicing, liquidity management, everything needed for business adoption. In short, ZAR Coin isn't a toy for crypto traders. It's a practical solution for everyday financial problems, especially in emerging markets where traditional banking infrastructure often fails. The numbers behind the boom. Now let's look at the data, because this is where things get even more interesting. Stellar's on-chain stablecoin market cap is now sitting at $231 million. That number is up 20% in the last month alone. And perhaps most importantly, there are now over 530,000 unique stablecoin holders on Stellar. 500,000 people and institutions are already holding and using Stellar-based stablecoins. That's not theory, that's adoption. And the growth rate suggests we're just scratching the surface. Why this matters for institutions? This is exactly why institutions are paying attention. Stablecoins aren't speculative, they're useful. They're programmable money with instant settlement, global reach, and compliance baked in. NGOs use Stellar stablecoins for aid disbursements. Merchants use them for cross-border payroll. Fintechs use them for global liquidity flows. And every time a stablecoin moves across Stellar's rails, XLM is part of the equation. That's direct, tangible utility, not just hype. The foundation of mainstream adoption. When history looks back at crypto in the 2020s, it won't be remembered for meme tokens or speculative manias. It'll be remembered for stablecoins and tokenized assets. And Stellar is already becoming the network of choice for exactly that. The explosive growth of stablecoins on Stellar is laying the foundation for mainstream adoption. Not retail adoption chasing pumps, but institutional adoption and real-world integration. And that's why this matters so much more than people realize. Because while the market is distracted, Stellar is building the financial bridge the world actually needs. XLM, the sleeping giant of 2025. With all this happening, the natural question is, what does this mean for XLM? Here's the reality. Stellar has been treated as a sleeper network for years. While Solana, Avalanche, and others had their hype cycles, Stellar was dismissed as boring. No DeFi, no NFTs, no hype narrative. But that's exactly why it's now positioned for the biggest upside. Real growth is here, 100M transactions, $150 million TVL, surging stablecoin adoption. Institutional alliances are here, Fidelity, tokenization frameworks, ERC 3643. Global rails are here, on off-ramps in 170-plus countries, stablecoins across multiple currencies, NGO partnerships. This isn't speculation. This is integration. And as institutional adoption compounds, XLM becomes the fuel that powers it. Every transaction, every stablecoin bridge, every DeFi contract, they all use the Stellar network and by extension XLM. The question is no longer whether XLM will survive. The question is when retail investors wake up to the fact that it's already thriving. The XLM floodgates are open. Here's the bottom line. Stellar isn't chasing hype. It's quietly building the backbone of real finance. Tokenization, stablecoins, and institutional DeFi aren't future buzzwords. They are live, growing, and scaling on Stellar right now. And the numbers, 100 million transactions, surging TVL, expanding stablecoin adoption, prove it. The floodgates are opening. The only question is, are you positioned before they do? Subscribe to Be Crypto Smart right now because I'll keep breaking down every single move, every institutional partnership, every tokenization breakthrough, every stablecoin expansion, and exactly what it means for your future as an investor in XLM, XRP, HBAR, and the digital asset space. This is where the smart money is moving. Don't miss it.